You're live.
Thank you. I want to call the special meeting of June 11th, 2024 to order at 1 o'clock. And I'd like to start with land acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge that Town of Winnipeg Beach is on Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Cree, the Oji-Cree, the Dene, the Dakota, and the Innu people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. And before we move forward with the meeting, I'd like to remind everybody in the gallery to refrain from conversations or other behavior that might disrupt council proceedings.
Be it resolved that the agenda for the June 11th, 2024 special meeting of council be approved as presented.
The mover, please. Councillor Jarvis. Seconder, please. Councillor Kozlowski. All in favor? Carried. Okay, so this meeting was called so that we could once again talk about the parking issue for downtown Winnipeg Beach. I believe over last fall and the spring we were talking about many different options to deal with some of the parking problems that we have here over the summer with residents and seniors not being able to access the businesses. And as Councillor Jarvis has said many times, when the town becomes a parking lot, not being able to move. We talked about a number of options. There was a meeting a few months ago where council had decided to leave a status quo. And then I think yourself, Councillor Kozlowski, asked this to be put back on the agenda. Where council decided last meeting to have another meeting in terms of discussing parking options. Again, I want to reiterate that this is one of those decisions that is not going to be popular with everybody, no matter what we decide. If we decide to go status quo, it's not going to be popular. If we decide to do anything different, it's not going to be popular. With certain groups of people, with other people, it will be very popular. But council wanted to discuss this again, so I thought I would use the whiteboard and put up the options that I can remember that we talked about. There might be other options we talked about that I'd like to hear from council if there's something that's missing up there. Is there anything up there that's missing? Councillor Houle?
No, I don't think so.
Councillor Kozlowski?
No. Okay.
Councillor Jarvis?
I think it's all the same.
Councillor Gendron, you probably can't see that.
Did you read it, please?
The first one we talked about having resident handicap parking passes only in the downtown area. I don't know that we have to get into how much residents and how much parking pass, or how much handicap, but we talked about resident and handicap parking passes only in downtown. We talked about ticket and tow. That would be implemented by our bylaw officer, and in that way we would get our revenue through the towing company because they would have to pay their ticket and their towing fee in order to get the car released. And so it decreases the it erases the possibility of giving tickets out and not getting the revenue from those tickets. In that vein, we also talked about the commissionaires that council had decided to hire, and that they would, the commissionaires would be the ones who would take over doing the vacant building, derelict building bylaw infractions, because those were the infractions that this council decided they wanted to focus on this year. We've also talked about paid parking, both at the railroad and or STIT. And we talked about a number of options in terms of how that paid parking would be done, whether it would be ticket, whether it would be a, I forget what they call those boom things that go up and down, the boom arms. Whether it would be computerized on phones, the pay by phone. We talked about a number of options with that. And we talked about paid parking, buying some land nearby and transporting folks. And there is some land available close to the downtown of Winnipeg Beach. And so we talked about buying land and transporting folks. Those are the options that I could think of. If there's other options that we have talked about, I'd be open to putting them on there now so we can make that part of our discussion. Councillor Gendron, is there anything that you think is missing?
Well, in all fairness to the wholesome discussion we had, status quo should probably be left at that.
Oh, right, of course. I will put it up.
Sorry, and just one other thing, would the closing of Main Street as it relates to parking fall within some of this, or should that be a separate item?
I think that should, my opinion is that should be a separate item, because that's not dealing with the parking issue. I mean, we have lots of other issues around downtown, but today's meeting is to simply deal with the parking difficulties that arise during the summer in our town.
Okay, so the only reason I'm mentioning it is because it would impact some decisions, but that's fine. That was the only reason I was thinking, but that can be a discussion for after decisions are made about parking and how that possibility might impact our decision, rather than talking about it first and then making our decision.
Okay, thank you.
I do believe at the business meeting, a business had mentioned about having personalized parking spots for their business.
Right.
Designated in front. So I don't know, it really didn't have conversation at the table, so I don't know if you want to add that
Do you
in.
want to add that, designated business park?
That was mentioned by Kevin from Park Place, that
Right.
businesses should have designated business parking spots.
Right. What I'm asking is that something we
Sure,
want to
I don't
add
care.
here?
I don't care, yeah.
And would it be a separate category, or would it come under one of these?
I think it should be separate.
Councillor Houle, Councillor Slosky?
Sure.
Yeah, separate. Are we gonna talk about tickets going through the courts? Or is that, or can we let people know why we don't do that right now?
You can talk about whatever you'd like,
Yeah.
Councillor.
We can talk about why we're not
Yeah,
looking at that for
The
sure.
ticket in tow for
Which
just
is
so
why.
people understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do we want to talk about that now in terms of why we just don't issue tickets ourselves?
Yeah, like why we're not going through the courts to
Right.
enforce.
Yeah, and we're not going through the courts to enforce because that becomes, well, our CAO can speak to it because she's done lots of
We
research
actually
on
really
this.
don't have the ability to, because parking, there is a Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Act in place, and so passing that legislation, it does not allow municipalities to go through the court system, that we do have to issue our own parking tickets, and those are not at this time being able to be collected or impacted via MPI or through the court system. And there is a huge process that we do need to go through, and including having an adjudicator, a screening officer, and those types of things for that, which cannot be staff or members of council. So there are additional charges associated with that. Several CAOs in the past, this is nothing new, and the enforcement of parking through the MBAA has been a challenge for several CAOs in several communities, and they were looking to see if there's the possibility of having a joint realm very similar to planning districts, where we can share adjudication and screening officers, but there's nothing in legislation at this point. And I have yet to know any municipalities that do have a joint agreement like that right now, so.
Councillor Kozlowski, are you raising your hand or are you just,
No, I'm there.
okay? So,
Councillor Gentry is raising her hand.
Councillor Jarvis,
If, like, we can't pursue it through a court specifically, but can we indicate that, are we able to tow somebody if you recognize a plate? Like if you have outstanding tickets, and I know this is a problem even in the larger cities where millions of dollars of outstanding parking tickets. But I mean, are we able to, if we recognize a vehicle and having the plate number, that we could just say, tow that he has $200 in outstanding parking tickets? Are we able to do that?
I'm not saying you're not able to do that. Administratively, though, we don't have any program in place. It leaves lots of room for error, and just administratively keeping track of all the various license plates, how many tickets, which ones were paid, I don't think that would be effective, but we certainly, whatever council deems as their course of action, they can do so.
Like there's so many, they have handheld called computers where they just kick in a license plate, and there's programs now that are available. You kick in a plate and it'll tell you if his ticket's expired or whatever. Like I'm just wondering if it's something that we should pursue. Like if we have commissioners that are doing it now, we have people that are looking for parking infractions. Like I'm not suggesting that we invest all kinds of time into people that, you know, are appear to be parking normally, but we have plenty of instances where people are parked illegally. And we can, you know, if this person's done this before, can we even include on a ticket that in future you might be susceptible to being towed?
But one of the things that comes up for me in terms of that, Councillor Jarvis, is we would have to be tapping into an app that's holding all that information. And that would be information that would have to be input by our administration. You
Well,
know,
every time a ticket is issued.
So every time, you know, Chris or somebody did a ticket, take down the registration, the license plate number, that would have to come to the office. They would have to, you know, there'd just be lots
But
of.
that's what, theoretically, that's what the police do now.
True, but
Right.
so
Yeah, like they just put in your license plate and it automatically pops up.
Right, Councillor Gendron, I see your hands up.
Thank you. I just want to clarify something before we go further down this road. We had a discussion about, we need to be looking at other revenue sources besides taxation. And then we had the parking issue. And I believe those two subjects sort of came together. But I don't think we want to be doing this as a means of spending all kinds of money to go after people for tickets and all of that, and end up being in the hole while solving our parking problem. Which is why I thought we had started or got to the discussion of ticket and tow. You're ticketed, you're towed, the tow truck driver collects both the ticket and the tow charge before releasing the car. And I'm not I mean, even if we don't go that way, we can't be losing money solving our parking problem. We've had discussions already about we need to come up with additional revenue sources for ourselves. And so spending money, yes, there will very likely be an initial outlay, but to be continuously going in the hole over monitoring our parking, I don't know if that's an effective solution to our problem.
Okay, thank you. Sure.
Yes, so in reference to a database, I think that's one of the big differences. The RCMP already have a database that they can tap into. So the creation of a database or exploring a database, that did not arise in council discussion. We were looking at actually having the physical units that people would either punch in their code and tickets would be issued that they placed onto their windshield, which then said whether or not they paid for their parking, or having the boom barrier gates. So in honest, the CAO has not researched what a database system for parking would cost. So it's when we look at that type of expenditure, once the database system is in place, it would not be, it would be more or less a one-time capital expenditure with no doubt a minimal operating expense from year to year. So I'm hesitant to say that a database system is not cost effective without doing the research. So just to be clear.
Councillor Gendron?
Yeah, I was referring more to the, not so much the database itself, but the means of then seeing cars that, whose license number is on us. So the constant monitoring of vehicles to see if they're in our database, that was more of what I was referring to as an ongoing cost.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jarvis?
I wasn't implying that it was a constant monitoring, but when you see somebody parked in front of a fire hydrant, you automatically kick in their license plate number. If you see somebody parked at the fire hall and they're not supposed to be there, you kick in their license plate number. If they're parked somewhere, double parked, or parked in a handicap and they don't have a sticker, you kick in their license plate number. So to monitor every single car is misunderstood. Nobody's monitoring it, we're looking for infractions.
So you're not talking about monitoring the 2-hour parking that's set?
No, I didn't say, I just
Said
said,
on every street
when
is
you
2
see
hour.
them double park, and I witnessed the other day, even the yellow lines which you're not allowed to park, no parking. People are parked on the weekend, they're parked all through there.
So you're
Because they're
talking,
looking for anything they can find.
so you're talking about using a database for some infractions, but not for all infractions?
Well,
Because-
no, I'm not talking about that,
Just-
no.
Just let me finish. You're talking about infractions if they're parked in a parking spot, in front of the fire hall or by a stop sign, but not necessarily monitoring people in the 2-hour spots who might be there for all day.
Exactly, I'm talking about immediate,
Okay,
which, every curb, every corner downtown has yellow paint, and every single driver in the world knows that you can't park where there's yellow paint. And so now you have somebody pulling a 42-foot trailer, trying to get around a corner, and every corner is occupied by somebody parked illegally. And
okay.
he can't get that trailer around the corner.
Mhm.
So when you walk by, I mean, everybody in this room that has a driver's license goes, automatically you go, you can't park there.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about looking at the 1,500 cars downtown. I guarantee you on any given day on the weekend, you can find 10 people that are parked illegally.
Okay, okay, so that's one thing to think about. Councillor Hull, what are your thoughts in terms of the options around parking?
Well, I think it'd be nice to have paid parking somewhere. I don't know, it's a tough gig. I think if we had some paid parking, it would hurt, or wouldn't hurt. It would help with revenue. I'm not a big fan of ticket and tow unless it's a park in front of the fire hall sort of situation. I'm worried about if we start towing vehicles, where do the vehicles go and how do the people that lose their cars get to their vehicle again? That's a tough one for me. If the vehicles are towed to Gimli or wherever they're towed, that could leave people stranded in Winnipeg Beach.
Yeah, well, I think with the ticket and tow, I mean, I understand that, and I know Councillor Kozlowski brought that up last time, and I was doing some thinking about it. And we do have signs that say 2-hour parking, but I don't think that we should leave it at that. If we were gonna do the ticket and tow, I think that we would have to do it in a pretty big way. Like, we would have to have a couple of signs put up saying, you will be ticketed and towed after 2 hours. The first couple of weekends, if you are there over 2 hours, we would have to put notices on the windshield saying, next time you will be ticketed and towed to Gimli. So it would have to be a public education thing. We wouldn't just start next weekend and do a ticket and tow. You're right. If we make it very, very clear to people that we're doing a ticket and tow, if we have signs that say you will be ticketed and towed, you will pick up your car at Gimli. If we do a couple of weekends where we're doing the warning signs, then if somebody comes and decides to park anyways all day, knowing all of that, then that's kind of on them. At some point, that's kind of on them. It's the same as if, you park illegally, down on Hargrave Street, and you get ticketed and towed because you're there at 4 o'clock and it says no parking after 3:30, and you have to make your way all the way across the city and you got no way to get there. yeah, that can be hard. So I think that we need to do all we can to inform folks. We put it all over Facebook, we put it on our website, we get a couple of signs and advertise, this is what's happening, we notify them for a couple of weeks. We even phone CBC, have them interview us on the noon show and those kinds of things. They're very open to doing those kinds of things. So it becomes very well known that's what's happening. And then if someone still decides to park illegally, there's consequences to making bad decisions.
Mhm. Yeah, we would probably have to do a half a year thing.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Because in my mind, if we do paid parking and we don't do ticket and tow, what we're doing is we're asking for a bigger problem. Because you'll have some people, because if the paid parking, say, is at the railroad there and that's it, you're gonna have some people who will pay their 10 or 15 bucks to park for the day, but you're gonna have those folks saying, I'm not gonna do that. And then they're gonna plug up the places where they're not gonna get ticketed and they're not gonna get towed and there's no consequences. And then we're causing a bigger problem. So the same people who don't wanna pay for parking are gonna be the ones who say, I don't care if I park here for 8 hours if I'm only supposed to be parking here for 2. In my mind, it's sort of the same mindset. So in my mind, the ticket and tow and the paid parking kind of go together. And in my mind, that also, like I know we can do things separately, but how I'd like to think about it is if we do the ticket and tow with the paid parking, we get some revenue. We also really increase the handicapped resident business parking downtown. We make it for 1 hour or 2 hours, so then your seniors can get their insurance and go to the store and do all the things that they're not able to do now because the place is too packed. What do you think about that, Councillor?
Yeah, so collaboration are like 3 different
Mm-hmm.
rather than just one.
Absolutely. That's how I think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a complicated issue, right? It's a
Yeah.
complicated issue that's been around for a long period of time. And there are going to be hiccups for sure. But we're trying to meet everybody's needs. So the businesses are saying they want to make sure that they have some business parking in front of the business. Our seniors are saying we can't get downtown to get our prescriptions, to go to our medical appointments, to get our insurance, to, Our residents avoid coming downtown because they can't find parking. So, and, it'd be great to get revenue from people who are day trippers.
And to be clear, council does have full autonomy as to what the parking bylaw looks like, that if it's only for certain, like you can say that these infractions are applicable Friday to Sunday, you can make them, seasonal, you can make them year-round, like you have complete autonomy as to what the structure looks like with any parking infractions. But the bylaw does need to be clear, outlining the parameters, and appropriate signage and referencing the bylaw needs to be installed as well. And then we look at the level of enforcement.
And I also want to say, this is not something that we're going to be able to start this year. Right? This is the stuff that we were talking about last fall to try and get ready for this year, but we're going to need some heads-up time. And the CEO's plate is way too full right now, so now we're talking about next year. But we need to make some definitive decisions so that we can start, if we're going to do something, getting the signs, figuring out the paid parking, figuring out all of those things.
And so looking at those options, Madam Mayor, is recognizing that the railroad section, we do not own that, and it is leased property, and we do not have full autonomy of making decisions at that location.
That's right. And I think the last time we met with them, all of council met with them, and they certainly said they were open to discussion, but we haven't followed up with that. sense. So we'd have to start those discussions again. Councillor Jarvis.
This is just a question, did Beaver Bus Lines contact the office regarding a seniors bus trip?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, and the only reason I mention it, because this is the first time I've ever seen this, and I was walking today, and they've opened the gate on Stitt, and they've allowed the buses and the cars, they're parking buses now, not in town, they used to park them on Main Street. They've opened the gate and they've parked them over by the Sadie Grimm thing. So they're down that runway, lined up in there, and I've never seen, so they must have contacted, and maybe the park has told them to do that, I don't know, but they used to park them at Main Street and block up all downtown, and now they have 2 highway buses parked over there by the band shell.
So if there is an event or something happening at the provincial park, there's a permitting system that they have in place, but they are under no obligation to share that
No,
information with the
I'm
office.
suggesting that they
So-
did that. The park must have realized that we don't want you to park in town, we want you to park over here, because part of our conversation was we became the parking lot by default. And so now for the first time, and I've never seen that, where they've actually have the buses now parked by the soccer pitches,
Okay.
inside provincial park property. And they've never done that before, they've always just parked them on Main Street.
Okay.
So I think it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure.
Other thoughts about the parking options? Councillor Kozlowski.
Yeah, we all know we got a parking problem here. It's been going on for years where people park for 8, 10 hours. They come 7 in the morning, leave their vehicle there all day. Same with when the bands are playing as well. I'm not a big fan of the ticketed tow, unless it is blatant, of course, and parked in front of a fire hydrant or the fire hall, or maybe a handicap parking spot. Because again, it's going to be hard for the people to get to Gimli or wherever they're towing their cars to. Maybe we can have them towed here to the Domo lot in the back there where they used to have cars towed before. I would like to see, and we had these talks with the provincial parks, where they used to have parking years ago on Stitt. On the east side, they said the parking lot is still there, all they have to do is dig it up. So we can either have free parking there, which will alleviate some of the parking for downtown area here, the side streets. We can make it paid parking to go in there. There's an metal arm there right now. That's where it used to be years ago when you go north and from there into the parking lot. I don't like the idea of the paid parking by land and transport. I think that's going to cost us a few dollars for that. So those are the ideas. I like the dig up that parking lot, either have free parking there or paid parking.
Which parking lot are you talking about?
The one on the Stitt and Ash on the east side there, close to the
Yeah.
water.
Hang on.
Yeah, you got it wrong.
Oh, back there, and I think
Right here, this used to be a parking lot and
Yeah.
then all the way down here.
Yeah, so we got,
I'm not talking right by the curb though, just off the,
It's right off Elm.
Yeah.
It's the extension of Elm.
Okay.
what,
so,
40 feet in.
Kenneth Gordon Lane.
okay,
Right.
so you're saying, I think we counted, we can get around 40 cars in there, so you're thinking to open up that for free parking?
Right. Free parking or paid parking.
Which would you prefer?
Well, to bring some revenue to the town, I'd say paid parking. Even $5, $7, $8 a day, you go to Winnipeg, you gotta pay the meters and, you know.
And so what do you think will encourage people to pay for parking there as opposed to just parking downtown where they usually do?
It's closer to the water there. They don't have to drag their wagons, they can take a chair or whatever. Safer for the kids, they don't have to cross the roads there, the
Okay,
highway there. So there's a few benefits that would be derived from there.
okay. Councillor Jarvis.
This is actually for Sharon, I think. I don't think we own that property. I think we own this property, correct?
Yeah.
That's,
We don't extend eastward towards the lake.
I don't believe so. So we just have what runs parallel with
So that would
Stitt.
defeat,
That's,
yeah, we have this is our
Yeah.
section. But the province still owns this section because
That's
they
right.
put
Yeah.
their conservation house in there too.
Yeah.
That's right.
and the province agreed with us when they were here for that meeting that the parking lot was still there, all they had to do was dig it up. So they're in favor of that, so.
I do believe if it does become provincial parking lot, that the park pass will be required and there would be no charge for that parking. I don't believe there's any charge for any provincial parking lot, so it would not be under the care and control of the town. So just to be clear with that.
Councillor Jarvis.
And it was expressed just 10 minutes ago by Mayor Jackson, is that that's what's happening already when they line their boat trailers up and everything down Laurel, on Prospect, and because they put their boat, they pay to put their boat in the water, but they don't have a park permit, so they have to park on town property. So that, as expressed by you previously, that's what's happening already. On Chestnut, it happens on Laurel, it happens on Prospect.
Yes.
Even though there is room in the parking, just.
There's
room, but it's a $40 fee. And for all of us, I mean, I get one every year, so you can get it in every park.
Okay. Councillor Gendron. Councillor Gendron.
Sorry, I was just trying to mute myself. Just wondering if we could have, at some point, some discussion with the province. Sorry, okay, first of all, I'm not 100% familiar. Councillor Jarvis, if somebody pays to put their boat in the water, who are they paying?
They pay the marina $5 to put a boat in the water. If you don't have a slip, and it used to be $5, I don't know, it could be 10 now, but you can use their boat launch, but there's a charge and you pay the marina. You have to go see the dock master.
So is the marina run by the province or is that private?
No, it's private.
So could we try to have a discussion with the person running the marina, asking them if they could start, if you dock your boat, you also have to pay to put your trailer in the lot?
No, because the lot is the park and the marina is private.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have to have a provincial parking pass to park in the lot.
So should they not be required to actually even have a provincial parking pass to pull in there and dock their boat? They're
No,
entering the parking
because
lot?
No, this is one of the complications of having a marina which is privately owned in the middle of a park. Sharon.
So just for clarification, it's not a provincial parking pass that it's required, it's a provincial park pass that will get you in any provincial
I'm
park.
sorry. Okay, yeah.
Councillor
Okay.
Jarvis.
Mayor Jackson is 100% correct, because we have, especially in the wintertime, you have people coming in from Minnesota, North Dakota. They don't want to spend the $40 on the park permit. So they just want to launch whatever vehicle that they can into the lake, and it'll cost them $5, $10, $15 to do that.
That's correct.
So,
Okay, so back to the table though, in terms of what direction this council wants to take in terms of moving forward with parking or not. So I hear three different opinions at the table. I hear Councillor Kozlowski saying you're not wanting to take it in tow, but you're wanting to do paid parking along Stitt. I'm hearing Councillor Houle, and if I'm misspeaking, let me know. I'm hearing Councillor Houle saying over a longer period of time, letting people know, doing the ticket in tow, paid parking, resident handicap parking passes, business passes downtown. I agree with Councillor Houle. I think that's the direction to go. Councillor Jarvis, I think you've been very clear saying status quo and only ticketing people who are parked illegally in front of stop signs or around yellow curbs.
handicap, etc.
Handicapped, etc. And Councillor Gendron, I have not heard from you yet.
My position has slightly changed from the last meeting. I am in support of paid parking, ticket and tow, but also in favor of Councillor Hull's comments with regarding this needs to be it needs to have a long education period. We don't just start doing it. So that is our end goal. not something that we jump into with both feet right away. So I'm inclined to agree with both Councilor Roll and Mayor Jackson.
Okay. Councillor Houle, would you see starting to do education about that this year?
I would. Yeah,
How would we do that?
I guess website and, website first and foremost, Facebook.
Signs.
Yeah,
Well, we'll have to get this, it'll take us a while to get the signs and figure out where to put them up and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think we should have our bylaw officer at this point saying, you know, putting up little signs under their windshield as of June 1st, 2025?
yeah, I guess if we nail down a date, I guess that's not a bad idea.
Okay. Sharon?
The CEO recommends that when we look, before we start looking at any level of education piece, that the parking bylaw is adopted.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
having all of the parameters identified in the parking bylaw, it will come to council. There are 3 readings within that. So there will be the chance for the public to comment on that bylaw. We can certainly stretch the readings of the bylaw to 3 separate meetings altogether instead of the 2 for 1. So before you can really start the education piece, we need to be very clear as to what we are educating the public on.
Absolutely.
And so having that bylaw finally passed and sealed, there's minimal room at that point to waiver or change
That's right.
the direction midstream as we start the education process.
Good point. Councillor General?
And then stepping back one step even further is because of what we're thinking about with the ticket and tow and everything downtown, I think it's imperative we first know whether or not we're going to be going with paid parking and what our costs are going to be, and whether the railway is in, so does all of that need to be done and decided on before we even look at our bylaws, Sharon?
Well, I think when it comes to paid parking, it's a bit different. You've got an identified paid parking, and then there's a ticket process in place. So the other option that has not been discussed is if we do have, so the rail line, or let's say the STIT, there is the creation of the STIT parking lot that's town owned, is it where the revenue is coming here, or is it the problem to go away and bring in Impark, if Impark is even interested in anything along those lines. So those types of parking, like having a paid parking lot, can be identified in the bylaw in generality, so that any paid parking lot is under those parameters, right?
Yeah.
So it's the piece of
Okay.
when you're actually issuing the ticket.
Okay. Thank you.
But I will double check. I don't think that the parking lot every single parameter needs to be in place, but I will double check that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Jarvis and Councillor Kozlowski, are you willing to live with, well, we don't have a lot of options, but I want to hear from you anyways, in that Councillor Houle, Jen, and myself are looking at the ticket and tow, resident handicap parking, paid parking. I'm assuming you can live with this? Given that it's majority?
My position on ticket and tow has always been that I'm against it. I agree with the education process. I mean, because all we're doing is educating people that it is a problem and has been a problem. I'm not certain how the commissionaires, because I thought the commissionaires, and now I seem to be confused about it, but I thought the commissionaires were the ones that were going to handle the traffic tickets. But are they, and now we've mentioned the bylaw officer again is involved in the traffic tickets.
Okay, so that's, I might have gotten that detail mixed up in my head. That's very possible. But that's details that we can figure out.
But I just want to know, are we going to continue, because I was the guy that had mentioned status quo. And when I say expressed already that this is a long-term project, well, that's what I mean. We need to go through another summer before, we're not going to make the decisions this year on this, because it's too big of a decision to make. But are we still going to continue to use bylaw officers to hand out tickets that go nowhere? or,
And that's something that we'll be figuring out on a operational level.
So commissioners, when we deal with the unsightly properties and the vacant and derelict buildings
That's right.
bylaw, those are, I don't want to say complicated bylaws, but they are very sensitive bylaws, and they require a sense of diligence and making sure that timelines are met. And so when we look at hiring commissioners, having an arm's length distance of an enforcement entity for those sensitive bylaws are always preferable, as you are dealing with people's property, and people become very protective over what is theirs. And having a bylaw officer that is local, I cannot have room for subjective, like, oh, this guy can have this, and oh, I will make different rooms. There cannot be any kind of differentiating or giving warnings and not giving warnings with those sensitive bylaws. And so commissioners at the December meeting will be contracted out on a per hour basis as a per needed for those sensitive bylaws to ensure that they're being upheld objectively, and that there isn't any room for favors or missing deadlines and forgetting I missed deadlines or anything along those lines. Because those bylaws, I do suspect some of those may incur a lawsuit, as in most municipalities, because people are very sensitive about their property.
I was
So
aware of
that
that,
is-
but it just that the commissioners is up there, so we don't really need to have them on there.
I just
Right.
put that in for
Yeah, so
clarity.
that was, my clarification was that under ticket and tow, it says commissioner, and it says for other bylaw infractions, but it's still listed there.
Aside from that, there was the opportunity that, depending on the level of monitoring council wanted for the parking infractions, because we are still under current contract with our bylaw officer till 2025, and so his hours and his contract is still valid until then. It gave the option for additional, whether it be commissioners or whether it be our other bylaw officer, and commissioners had expressed that there may be a possible member on their team that is local, that the costs associated with using them, if we wanted to use additional hours for parking infractions, there may be the availability at a very cost-effective rate. So that's what was there.
Councilor Kozlowski?
Yeah, once again, I am against the ticket and tow unless it's very blatant. Or if we can set something up here, maybe with the Domo station, where they did years ago, where they towed the cars there, keep it in the area so that people can get there very easily. We do need more parking, so. And if we have something on Stitt, just off the roadway there, people are still going across the street and they'll be parking by the trucks. That will be their first source, because it's free parking, they won't have to pay for it. On the other side, if we have paid parking, but again, we do need more parking, so we have to get into that part to get another parking lot. We have to get extra parking in this town.
Yeah.
And also another thing, with these rubber curbs, what's going on with the rubber curbs, I can see that they're good for the patios and that, but to put them all down Main Street, I'm not in favor of that at all.
Yeah, I understand that. That was a decision, though, that council made
Yeah.
2 meetings ago. And we're not talking about rubber curbs today, we're talking about
Well, that involves parking, your
I
rubber
understand
curbs.
that. I understand that. But 2 meetings ago, council made a decision to have the rubber curves running north to south.
Yeah, so
along
that's
Main
gonna be
Street. And I understand you don't agree with that.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. So, are we ready to pass a resolution?
You got it right, Chair.
On what exactly?
Well, that's what I'm saying, we have to write it.
So
And the
the CAO is left with a few questions,
Yeah.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
When we look at, there's been a few things, so if the options, when we look at this resident and handicap parking passes, I'm unclear, I'm hearing 2 different things with downtown. So there were nods about, is council looking at turning all of the downtown parking area only for handicap I shouldn't say that, only accessibility and resident passes? Or was council looking at 2-hour parking downtown? Or was, what exactly is the
I mean, I guess that's the,
direction?
I mean, I guess that's the thing. We don't necessarily have to have, and I'm just thinking out loud here, I could be missing something, so catch me if I'm wrong, but we don't necessarily have to go about the expense of sending out resident parking passes if we have 2-hour parking downtown that's enforced. In my mind, and Councillor Houle and Councillor General and everybody, I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. So it would seem to me if we increase our handicapped parking downtown and enforce it, and increase our business parking downtown and enforce it, and have the rest 2-hour parking that's enforced, that will make our downtown more accessible for our seniors who want to access the businesses. And it won't make it as complicated in terms of having a separate resident pass. But that's just my thoughts out loud. Councillor Cole, did you have a thought about that?
Well, I think increasing the accessibility parking is a good idea for sure. Um,
What do you think of the separate business parking?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know. Would we gonna assign so many slots per business, or like how do you enforce, how do you know where they are? Like,
Agreed.
Yeah, and then you have all the signs, right, for Dairy Bee here, for Gayrock Insurance here, for
Yeah.
Medical Clinic here, for Shenanigans here, for,
you would never be able to.
that just makes it kind of crazy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if just having that increased handicap parking
Yeah,
and
'cause I've
enforced
had many of
2-hour
those
parking
requests.
then makes it accessible for the businesses as
Yeah.
well. Councillor Gendron?
Yeah, that makes, I know that the businesses suggested having parking for them, but I'm thinking that, the education piece and then going with the ticket and tow would be sort of a happy meeting them halfway, as far as then there should be adequate turnover for, people coming in and out of their businesses. And yeah, I think if we're gonna be, going with the ticket and tow on in the downtown area and the limited 2-hour parking, that we shouldn't need to go to the expense of providing, passes to residents, and plus the increased accessible parking.
Okay, Councillor Jarvis, you had your hand up and down and up and then down again.
Well, two things. One is that there is legislation apparently coming through, because there'll be a determined number of, or percentage of handicap. I know that for sure, because I spoke to a guy at the end, that's coming through. Before we do anything, we might either fall short or have too many. And then the other thing that I've spoken about before with reference to the passes, we have an awful lot of people that use services in this town that don't live here. And even the post office and so on and so forth. We get into that can of worms, we're gonna have some problems where people are they're bringing their dog from Fraserwood to have it groomed at Sitting Pretty or whatever, and it's just, that's a box that we might not wanna open on actually having residential passes.
Yeah, and I think that what we're saying at this point is if we have the enforced 2-hour parking, then that
I agree with
negates the need to have resident passes.
If we're gonna do that, then I agree with that. Rather than getting into permanent resident passes, that's just gonna be
Okay, so
a chaos waiting to happen.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
no resident passes.
Right.
That's right.
We have too many services, even the laundromat. There are people that are coming to use the laundromat, and they don't live here.
Okay, and so, and I don't think that the bylaw may or may not come out, and we'll certainly pay attention to it in terms of how many accessible parking areas we need. But I've got the feeling that we should that will probably supersede the number that's gonna be required, because we do have an aging population. I don't mind having more than what's legally required, to help our seniors out. Okay, so we're talking about, so I guess, accessible parking needs those provincial passes anyways, right? So we don't need the residential passes. And we don't need the separate business parking.
No, I
Right.
think that's a can of worms too.
That's a kind of word.
I think to buy land and transport is a problem too.
You don't think it's worth a conversation, folks?
But maybe conversation, but I mean, if cost factor, if we're worried about, creating a cost, buying a hunk of land with no guaranteed usage. So,
Are we worried about the 2-hour parking for, like, when we have bands and all that kind of stuff? Like, people, the bands last longer than 2 hours.
Well, I'm wondering whether the 2-hour parking should be
3 years.
9 AM till 7 PM.
Mm.
So that leaves your businesses and stuff open, there's gonna be a flow and everything else by 7 o'clock in the evening. Open it up, your bands will be here until 10 o'clock, people will be having dinner for more than 2 hours. Because it's the congestion during the day, right? And if you're here for the day, and you're gonna stay into the evening, you've already found parking somewhere else. I could be missing something there, but that's kind of what I'm thinking, Councillor
the
Jordan.
city says 5. So example, if you're going to, on Gary Street, if you went to the Cape.
Yeah,
Yeah, you don't, if it's 5:05, you don't worry about the meter.
right.
Yeah.
Councillor Gendron?
Yeah, if we go to 5, then that pretty much gives anybody that wants to come, and just because the bands were mentioned, it pretty much gives anybody a chance to come down, get a parking spot, have a bite to eat, and be able to stay for the bands. That 2 hours really allows them to come down for 5. So if we left it till 7, that should work well with evening events. And the beachers, yeah, the day tripper beachers, will either have parked elsewhere and are still staying for the band, or will be gone by the time the band starts. And spots will open up.
Okay, so then what days of the week?
Friday to Sunday.
I have a question for Councillor Jarvis, just because of his physical location. During the summer, how busy is it downtown during the week?
Depends on the weather. If you have a Wednesday where it's really sunny and warm, you can be busy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see it like a Friday or a Saturday. The Thursday night now is, in the last few years, is starting to get busy, and I mean busy. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Sundays.
But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are still pretty hit and miss, and it's weather related.
Unless it's a long weekend?
Oh yeah, but I mean, historically, like today's Tuesday, and who would have thought that we got 2 buses of tourists sitting in over at the park?
Right.
And it's June, so who knows what's going on now, so.
So should we say, well, I don't know, I want to include Mondays just because we have those long weekends.
I think you have to, because unless, I think I've seen text where it says long weekends and stuff like that. We could probably put that in there,
You can do whatever you like.
so, but for sure, Saturday and Sunday, and quite possibly,
Thursday, Friday.
yeah,
So,
and that would cover your long weekend thing.
So, except Tuesday and Wednesday?
Yeah, that's not uncommon.
July and August, or July and August?
Yep, well, they do that for the speed limits, and they do that on Prospect between Park and Ash, the one way, May 15th to September 15th. Like, you can put in dates and times, days of the week.
so are we doing the same thing, May 15th to September 15th?
Well, no, I think downtown should be, I agree with Councillor Gendron, July and August. So say June 30th to September the 4th, and that would include Labor Day.
What do you think, Councillor Hall?
And then
Yep.
June 30th would, catch the, Canada Day crowd.
Yeah, well, school's out, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when I did the thing for Grand Bend, Ontario, that's what they do. They do it for the June 30th to the Labor Day, long weekend. The parking laws are enforced in those time zones.
Okay, so how should it say here? June 30th until September long, or June
Labor
30th
Day.
until September 10th, or June 30th until, because the bylaw's gonna have to be very specific here. And
Well-
sometimes the long weekend in September is June 5th, sometimes it's June 8th.
June 15th to September 15th?
I would say
Oh.
September, because I was saying we still have show and shine and a few things in September.
Yeah,
And so 9 to 5, June 15th to September 15th, Thursday through Monday inclusive?
Correct.
Is
Yeah,
that-
Thursday through Monday is fine, inclusive.
Councillor Hu, Councillor Kozlowski?
Yeah.
Sorry, my handwriting is not good.
Mayor Jackson's just writing on the whiteboard. Councillor Gendron has her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor Gendron.
We have to realize though that if we're doing it in June, and if we're doing it that many days a week, we also have to have enforcement. And the cost of enforcement is going to be effective if we are doing it so many days during the week? Do we want to look at Thursday or Friday to Monday?
I see Councillor Jarvis has something to say, but I also want to say, I don't think that we should be making our bylaw based on
Cost.
our current enforcement difficulties, because we don't want
That's
the,
not what I'm thinking.
I know, but I
Sorry, let me clarify what I mean. If we are going to be enforcing with commissioners,
No.
no, we're enforcing with a bylaw officer.
Commissioners are gone.
The commissioners are gonna be doing vacant property, derelict buildings, those kinds of things, and we're gonna be using our bylaw officer for parking enforcement and piers only. And so all of his time will be the parking enforcement and piers. So it might be that we have to increase his hours and stuff, but I don't wanna have the bylaw that's gonna be here for the next number of years based on our current bylaw officer's hours.
okay,
Councillor Jarvis.
I was confused.
Yeah, I don't think we should worry about whether or not it's enforceable. Just having the sign that will deter an automatic percentage of people right off the bat. But you're gonna get into difficulty if you don't have it posted. So if there isn't clear-cut instructions on the sign, whether enforceable or not enforceable, then you'll never be able to enforce it.
Okay. I'm of the belief that if we're gonna do this, we do a huge public education thing, we do
Oh,
all the
granted.
warning, the tickets, everything. But when we decide it gets enforced, we absolutely follow through on enforcing the exact hours that we say, because otherwise, it'll be the same as all the 2-hour parking in town. Everybody knows the signs are there and no one's paying attention to them. So we have to enforce like this when the enforcement hits. First of all, Sharon, and then Councillor
And
Jarvis.
so, to be clear, you were looking at the 2-hour parking and expect to issue a parking ticket?
And tow.
And, okay, so the tow was still yet left to be determined?
I'm not for towing.
But we are still, okay, so the tow aside, the reality of issuing the parking ticket, there is still that process of having a screening officer and adjudication and all of that in place.
Okay.
Okay, so council we just don't have the right to issue a ticket as being
I understand that.
done.
I understand that. Councillor Jarvis.
And maybe I'm confused, but we can issue a ticket, whether or not it's enforceable is the issue, correct? Like, I put a ticket on a windshield, if it says 2-hour parking only, whether or not they pay, I can't force the guy to pay. He can drive away and go and file that.
Correct.
Right, so, and I think it's unrealistic to think that we're gonna be able to get every single infraction. Okay, like whether, and I understand what you're saying, but I think it's unrealistic that if, you know, if he goes for lunch and somebody parks there for 35 minutes and they're gone while he's on a lunch break, they're not getting a ticket because he's having lunch.
Okay.
Yeah,
So Councillor Jarvis, in my mind, Councillor Houle and myself and Councillor Gendron are of the belief that we do the ticket and tow and the paid parking. Is that correct, Councillor Houle?
Yep.
Is that correct, Councillor Gendron?
It is, but may I ask one question, please, Madam Mayor, CAO?
Okay,
Sharon?
Yes.
If we are going to issue tickets, does that mean we are required to have the adjudicator process all arranged in case somebody wants to fight their ticket?
I believe that is the standard, whether or not, if you're not looking at collection, then I guess
Yeah.
not. So I guess
So then, okay.
should you have that in place if you're looking at issuing a bylaw under the Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Act, the CAO recommends that we follow the legislation that's in place,
yeah. And so if
Okay.
we're. and-
which means having that process. If, however, I don't know, like it's just
Yeah, there
a
really is
show
no
of
clear
saying,
problem.
like a threat of having a ticket, it's hard for the CAO to support a movement like that because it's just, if there's no level of enforcement, even if you have an enforceable bylaw and choose not to enforce it, level of adherence to any of the signs or infractions become mute, and we're still incurring the costs of having an officer patrol to issue the tickets and no revenue to counteract those expenses.
And so the question for me is, if we're doing ticket and tow, where in order to go and pick up their cars from the place their cars have been towed, they have to pay the towing charge and the ticket, do you still need an adjudicator?
Not at that point,
Okay.
because the ticket's been paid, case closed. It's through that process to dispute
Exactly.
the ticket.
So,
But I will verify,
so that goes back to the original decision, is that Councillor Houle, myself, and Councillor Gendron are voting when we come to a vote for the ticket and tow. So now we're just trying to figure out the details of the ticket and towed and paid parking. So our CAO has enough information to be able to put it in a bylaw so that we can move forward with that bylaw. So I understand Councillor Jarvis and Councillor Kozlowski, you don't agree with the ticket and tow, but the majority of council has agreed with the ticket and tow, so that's where we're going. So if we're doing a ticket and tow, we do not need an adjudicator,
I'll see.
but our CAO is going to be checking that. Councillor Jarvis and then Councillor Kozlowski.
I'm not against ticket, I'm against towing.
I understand
But
that.
every parking ticket, any tow that I've been towed downtown through no fault of my own, they all have options on there on payment options. So if I have to pay to get my car out of the impound, I can still challenge that ticket in court. Now, if I challenge it and there's no adjudicator, and this has happened to me, they just dismiss it.
Okay.
And I had a $500 fine dismissed because of that reason.
So our CAO has already said that she's looking into
Right.
that. Councillor Kozlowski.
Yeah, I'm not, like Councillor Jarvis, I'm not against the ticket. What I am against is the tow, unless we can have a compound here at Winnipeg Beach, I would agree with that.
Okay, Councillor Houle.
Would you guys agree that the ticket and tow would work if the infraction is blocking the fire hall, is blocking,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So the ticket and tow isn't fully out of your minds, it's just, I mean, if it's a major infraction where you're blocking the fire hall doors, or you're
Yeah.
even blocking a hydrant, or even in a handicap zone, you don't have a permit. I mean, these are major infractions, I think.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Latent infraction.
Councillor Jarvis.
Yeah, and when I say, I sent a picture and a text to Councillor Houle a couple of weeks ago of a guy that parked his motorcycle in the entrance. So you gotta tow that motorcycle out of there, because the guy is now in the entrance.
I know.
And I'm not against stuff like that, but that's a flagrant infraction that jeopardizes quite possibly public safety. But for somebody that's parked on Center in front of the housing project, the Manitoba Housing, and then you come along because they're at 2:05, or maybe they're a half hour past, and you tow that car out of there, I mean, I have a problem with that.
I understand that. I understand that. So, we're talking about ticket and tow, 2 hour, 9 to 5, June 15th to September 15th, Thursday through Monday inclusive. Is that correct so far?
Yep.
Councillor Gould?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. There's something else that was on there I was gonna think about.
So is the 2-hour parking just downtown? Like where is council stopping, or is it throughout?
Can we look at the map here? So, yeah, I'm thinking the whole downtown area. This, hopefully we can turn into some paid parking on this side here. So probably not along here. I'm just wondering with the problem at the marina, where's the marina? Marina's here. No, you can't do 2-hour parking here, can you? Because people are gonna have friends and stuff over.
Where are we here? This is one way too, right here.
Yeah, I
And
know.
they're parking here, so, and now they're using park, I've seen them use park as well. Anything in here they're using, because you need a permit to go that way.
I know, and so my question is, we don't wanna be doing the 2-hour ticket and tow through here, because these people are gonna have friends over who are gonna be wanting to park, like in front of their house,
Even residents, yeah.
for the residents. But so how do we manage all the people who are coming in, parking their no trailer parking.
No overnight parking.
But we also say no trailer parking. Don't they have to be hauling their boats in on a trailer?
Yeah, you can do no trailer parking, but you also have people with houseboats. And they come and they visit people and they park there as well. People live on the boats. So you're gonna have vehicles
Okay.
as well.
So I guess the question is, at this point, are we gonna try and tackle this as well as this? Or are we just tackling
I would
this?
just start with the
Stop.
I'd stick with
Downtown.
downtown.
Okay, so why aren't
Proximity
we,
to the beach is what's killing you.
so why aren't we saying,
See, because you have it here too. Now, this is no parking signs, you know that, right?
yeah,
Every pole has no parking signs on it.
yeah. So how far over do we wanna do this?
Well, they park all the way up to Churchill, both sides,
I know they do. So are we doing this whole area here?
and include Chestnut, because they'll park there and walk across. Because this is the parking that they're using already, right here, on the railroad. So Chestnut, and you've seen it, right, Barry?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, they park all the way down Chestnut into Larch and McPherson. All they want is proximity to the beach.
Yeah, I get that. So we're doing this whole area here,
Mhm.
down the end of Hamilton, Robinson,
Yeah, they
and
park
then
everywhere.
up Chestnut. Or no, is that what you're saying?
that's very far.
Do we want to start with this year
I would just do that, yeah.
and see how it goes?
Yeah.
And then look at expanding that
Yeah.
depending upon how people
I think it'll
go?
be a good trial run.
I don't know if we do it around the Legion or not, because there's many events there. You know, there's socials there, pancake breakfasts, so I would say leave that area out. The
I-
curling rink, they're gonna be in there more than 2 hours, you can't put up, you know. There's socials there, there's weddings there, there's, you know, curling
Yes,
events.
but this is only 9 to 5. So if there's socials and weddings in the evenings, that's not a problem. When there's the breakfast and stuff there, I'm not sure people spend over 2
has
hours there.
Yeah, Legion has events Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
Mhm.
floor hockey, cards. So
Mhm.
they're there more than 2 hours.
Isn't that from 1 to 3, their cards?
1 till 3:45. Time to get out of there.
Okay, so I
I
don't,
have a suggestion on that. Sorry, my arm's getting tired holding it up.
oh, sorry, Jane, I was over at the map.
No, that's okay. What if we went with that there is, and I'm not quite sure how exactly this will work, but we do need to limit the parking to 2-hour parking in the lots at the community center, at the Legion, at the curling club, but signage says, unless attending an event, then if there's something going on at the Legion, if they want their participants to be able to park longer, then they're responsible for collecting the license numbers of those that are there. And whoever's doing our enforcement, our bylaw officer, before chalking and ticketing in that area, would check with the Legion and see which license numbers are validly parked and which aren't. You have to leave your license number when you're parking a lot at a dentist's office or a doctor's office. So if they want their people participating at their events, if they want them to be able to have an exception to the 2-hour parking, then their responsibility would be to have their guests provide their license numbers so that the bylaw officer can check and not be ticketing inappropriately.
Okay, we got Sharon, and then Councillor Jarvis, and then Councillor Houle.
So the CAO definitely would not recommend that we pass any legislation on private property,
That's right.
right? So I mean,
What's
the Legion's
private
parking lot is the Legion's parking lot. It's not a public street. And so monitoring a private parking lot is not a recommendation that I would make.
So just be a
Sorry, I
straight
thought that
across.
was the whole script with ours. So what about in front of the curling club and in front of the community center?
Those are town,
You'll get, that's town property.
correct.
So we could do that for those 2 locations?
You could,
Councillor
I
Jarvis.
concur with the CAO, because I know in Gimli, for example, they use Lakeview has paid parking lot attendants, and you have to show room keys, etc. So if it's private property, then it's their responsibility, and if, I don't think you're gonna be able to separate curling club from beachgoers and rec center from beachgoers. These people will park anywhere they can.
Councillor Houle.
Which is why Councillor Jarvis, I was suggesting that there be 2-hour parking. I did not
Well,
realize that
well-
when I made the comment that the curling club or that the Legion owns their own property. But I'm trying to deter beachgoers from parking on town property for the day.
Okay, Councillor Houle.
Yeah, do you think we may have to bump it up from 2 hours?
4 hours, sort of.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
They have that down. I go to 4-hour parking in Winnipeg. Right along by the
Yeah,
government.
no, I understand that, but what we're trying to do is stop the day trippers from plugging up town. And I think that 4 hours would just make it much more complicated. I think that one street that's running in front of the curling club and the Legion and stuff, we'll have to figure that one street out because of people using the Legion. But I think if we don't have the 2-hour parking there, then the beachgoers are just gonna fill that street up and people aren't gonna be able to access the Legion anyways. And so I think it's better if we have the signs, 2 hours parking, ticket and toll. And we'll have to figure something out, like if you're a Legion member, you have something on your dash, letting people know you're a Legion member or something. We don't, I don't know, we'll have to figure something out about that. But I think as soon as we go to 3 or 4 hours, then, you got people coming at 12, they say, oh, it's only until 5, well, you can park here until 7 or 10 tonight, and it's only an hour. I think it's gonna get too loose. I think we're gonna go to all this work, we need to stick to 2 and figure the Legion and the curling club out in terms of their events.
Curling club is closed for the summer, so
That's
they're
true.
not an issue.
Councillor-
But, so, look, Councillor Kozlowski, if you went to the Legion on let's say on a Saturday in July or something, would it bother you to have to take a mirror tag from the Legion to go back out to your car and stick it on your mirror for the day?
No, well, it might be up to the Legion to issue passes to their members, but there's a lot of members too that go there that aren't paid members. But they still support the Legion, so again, that would be up to the Legion if they can. And I know ours.
No, I members, I just meant if you were going on a Saturday, pretend you're not a member. If you were going on a Saturday to participate in an event that they were having that was running for 5 hours, would it be a big deal if you went in, they had
It's true.
a pass that they could give you for parking on the street
Yeah, no,
for longer than 2 hours,
No.
to go back out to your car and stick it on your window?
yeah, no, there'd be no
Yeah, that's a
problem.
good idea, Councilor General.
Yeah, so that's probably something that we could do for them to enable them to have their people participating in their events parked for longer than 2 hours
Okay.
and not affect, and wouldn't affect the wording. Would that have to be included in our bylaw, Sharon, or no?
When I get parameters, I'll look through the pieces and put the bylaw together. So if I
Okay.
knew everything, I'd write it right now.
Councilor Jarvis?
We have some situations too, and even on Hamilton, where you have private residences, and they only have one-car driveways. So if somebody's visiting them, and they're paying their property taxes downtown, and it happens all the way down Robinson as well, where do they park? If they're coming, if it's an anniversary, if it's a birthday party, and there's 5 or 6 cars there, and they're having a backyard barbecue, how do we justify that?
Well, I think the reality is that there's, we could sit here and always look at the exceptions. And I don't think that we can be making bylaws around looking at exceptions. I think we need to be making bylaws about what's best for the town overall. If we've got a resident who's having a special event, I mean, maybe we can think about, putting up some signs saying special event, no parking, they have to come in here and do
I'm
something.
just thinking, you get a 50th wedding anniversary, and people come in from Saskatchewan or Ontario, and they attend, and we tow their car. You know what I mean? And they're at a 50th wedding anniversary, and then we find out that they've got to pay a ticket and a tow charge, and they've come in for their parents' anniversary. I just think it's just a little absurd, but.
Okay, well, I think that happens in lots of different places. There's lots of residential areas downtown, in Winnipeg, that's 2 hours only, and if you're having 75 people over, you have to figure out parking for the people who are gonna come over to your house. And so people get very creative, they call their neighbors, they carpool, they do a variety of things.
Agreed, I understand that, but they don't
Okay.
have 400 cars that are showing up there trying to go to the beach, you know what I mean? And that's what we're dealing with.
I get
So we're
that.
trying to compensate for a problem,
Mhm.
and we're creating, I don't want to create another problem, and that was my original conversation. I don't want to create a problem trying to solve a problem.
I understand that, yeah. What else do we have to figure out in terms of this? What else do you need for the bylaw, Madam CAO?
Well, I think there will be several revisions
I know there will
as we go through, so.
Multiple readings.
I think that I don't anticipate first reading. It'll be review first. We may have a few reviews prior to, because, implementation, looking at what our implementation date's going to be. Is going to be June 15th of next year.
That's
right?
correct.
So looking at some of the parameters in through here is looking at making sure, again, the enforcement piece is part of it. That's the big piece. And are we then separating out major infractions, or are we not separating out major infractions? We are.
I think,
And
I don't think there's any,
double check with the parking.
I don't think there's any point separating out major infractions. If they're
Okay.
parked illegally, then it's just an automatic. There's no question about it. They will be ticketed and towed for sure.
And with the difference being that if it's a major infraction in the fire hall or whatever, in front of the fire hall or whatever, it's an immediate tow.
Yeah,
The others have 2 hours to.
yeah. And we'll have,
Pretty good.
and we'll have to do some planning. This won't be going into the bylaw, but we'll have to do some planning in terms of the education piece. Councilor Kozlowski.
Are we gonna look at a compound here, maybe in Winnipeg Beach for the,
I don't think we're at that place yet to be looking at that.
just rather than further than Gimli, then like I say, I would be in favor of the tow and tag and tow.
Well, I mean, part of the issue, and I think we talked about this before with the ticket and tow, is that we were gonna be putting the tow out to tender. Right? And the municipality isn't gonna be towing.
If we can get get something, work something out with the Doma where they had the compound before. And
Well, that's a separate
They-
issue.
That's a separate
Yeah,
issue.
I
They
know.
don't have their own tow trucks either, so.
It's just so that we have it in our minds that we can maybe have that compound here with the beach instead of going to Gimli. And leaving people stranded here and not having to wait to get to Gimli to get their vehicle.
Well, I'm hoping with all of the public education and all of the signage and everything else, that people will take it seriously and not be parking in a 2-hour place where it says you're gonna get towed.
Yeah, but people might not come out here for the year, they'll come here the following year, whatever, and the
Read the
education's
signs.
over already.
Yeah. Councilor Jarvis?
Back to the, you know, if they have special events, how do we advertise, like, we have situations now where we have the Austin Healy Club and different things, and we have people that come to the office and ask permission, they say, we're gonna have a party here or that. So how do we promote that, or how does that information get out there right now? That somebody would know of that, like, how can we promote if you're gonna have a 50th wedding anniversary, come to the office and we'll give you some parking permits that you can put in your windshield? Are we able to do that?
So my understanding is, we're just focusing in the downtown
Mhm.
core here.
Mhm.
And so we're Austin, Healy, all of those other streets that ask to have road closures.
I'm just using it as an example,
They're-
you have residences right here, even downtown, there are people.
True,
Yeah.
and so then that is like when we look at if council is receptive to having a provision for resident properties in the area only to be able to request parking passes, that they contact the town to provide, that's an option for council consideration.
Yeah, I'm just
But
wondering how we,
that's-
the question being, how can we promote that? Because even the Manitoba Housing, it's filled with seniors, and I see them, they park in the hotel parking lot, and then they go with their presents and everything into the seniors home, but there's 4 or 5 cars in the hotel parking lot that aren't in hotel. You know what I mean? As if we could promote something where, if you're gonna have that, and you're gonna have space, that you come to the town and we'll give you 5 parking things you can put on your dash.
I just wouldn't want to make, I mean,
I just don't wanna tow somebody's car that,
no, I
Yeah.
totally understand, but I'm also saying the folks who live in the seniors' home, they've already figured it out. They use the hotel, and they walk down.
yeah, so now I wanna go to the hotel, where do I park? I park at the post office?
Yeah. And
They've
get,
already figured it out. Councilor General?
We have an issue right now where day trippers come at 7 o'clock in the morning, or 7:30, and they park all day. So somebody's having a 50th anniversary party at 2 o'clock in the afternoon right now, has no parking for their guests.
Right, but that's what I
At
said.
least by us putting 2-hour parking in, they have some chance that they're gonna get a spot near where the party is. And I think once we make decisions on how we're going to deal with these exceptions, and what options we may be laying out for individuals that live in the downtown area, that can all be part of our education component.
Well, and the other thing is, Councilor General, following up on what you're saying, you're right. Hopefully the parking will be much more available downtown now for folks. And it'll alleviate the people who are wanting to have a party at their house if they live downtown. Councilor Jarvis?
But that's why we're having this discussion, because prior to 2010, they could park where the trailers are, and we never had that problem. So that's why this council is trying to solve this problem, because this is getting worse and worse and worse every year. We have more and more people coming to the beach, and they're parking everywhere. So your Councilor Gendron is right. 12 years ago, we never had this problem because they had a parking lot where people could park. Well, now, there's more and more people coming here, and as we go through the summer and we have everything from family barbecues and get-togethers to birthday parties, is that people are trying to come downtown, and they can't park. They end up parking somewhere over on Churchill, and they walk and they take their kids with them.
We
And that's
understand.
why we're having this conversation to try and solve that.
That's right.
Okay? It's not
That's right.
too bad, get here at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you know, I mean, that's not the question, and I'm not trying to start an argument, but this is what we're trying to solve, is that people are coming here and they had no idea that it was boardwalk days, or they had no idea that there was a show and shine going on, and where do I park? And they're parking over on Ash, and they're walking 5 blocks.
No, I understand that, that's why we're having this conversation. What I'm saying is, because we're having the ticket in tow, that might free up some of the space downtown, so if I'm a friend of the person who lives across the street, I'll be able to park my car there because there'll be some available space.
But this is a
And
new thing for
if-
us.
Yeah, absolutely. And if after 2 hours I have to get up and drive around the block and park somewhere else for another 2 hours, then that might be what I do. But it's hopefully going to be making more space for the residents. I don't think this is going to be our last kick at the can. I think that we're going to be doing the pilot next year, and there's going to be some bugs, and then we're going to be back at the table saying, okay, how do we want to fix this bug? How do we want to fix that bug? We can't think of every bug that might happen before we implement, but we at least have to take some of the first steps. This is going to be a lot of work for our CAO. This is going to be a lot of work for our administration to get all of this going. And it's going to take at least until next spring to be able to get everything on board. So we have to have a starting point and do the first year, next year as a pilot. Not a pilot, but as a first step. And then we'll be sitting here again and looking at some of the bugs and figuring out where we go from there.
Yeah, the tricky piece is always the enforcement of
That's
any
right.
bylaw, right? That's the challenge. And so has there been any discussion, the parking lot, when if we're looking at this, we've got the town parking lot where the EV charger is. I've been hearing parking along Stitt. Is it council's intention in 25 to build a parking lot there?
I would say yes. We need more parking.
So it's just as I'm looking at, getting costs and looking at things and stuff, if that's the intent of the direction of putting the parking lot.
Whether we have two
So-
parking lots there, one off the curbside and one further in, closer to the water.
No, we can't.
Why?
Because the town only owns the first 30 feet in.
Yeah, but the province said we could take, and they agreed with us when they were at the meeting here, the parking lot is there. We'll dig it up and you got it.
The
We can go
province,
hoppers with them.
the province said that they used to have parking down here, Kenneth Gordon Lane, and that they would look at opening that up again. They said nothing about opening up a parking lot here. They said nothing about that. They said they would look at opening up down this lane. That's the province. What we're talking about is us opening up here because we only own 30 feet in from the edge of that curb.
Well, that's right.
And so we can run a parking thing along here that we probably would have enough room for the diagonal parking, and that's it. We're not building anything.
Well, that's
on
where the parking lot was. North and south of there, the parking lot was there and they grassed it.
Park is not open for that. And I can't imagine the park thinking that they would get very good public reviews if you build, Rec Paradise to build a parking lot. You know what I mean? They ain't gonna take down green space for a parking lot. Councillor Jarvis.
They would need on Elm, which is what you're talking about, and Larry, you're correct. The parking posts are still there, but they would need a park permit, $40 to get in there.
That's right. That's
They
a
could
good
park there, but now you'd need a park permit, and as the CAO suggested, enforcement might be the problem, because they don't have enough people in there.
That's right.
So, but they can't go down, they can't park, because they're automatically on provincial park ground. They need a dashboard sign.
So the only option that we have on Stitt is that diagonal parking along
Yeah.
Stitt, where the ice skating was this year, or for part of the year until someone sabotaged it.
And-
I guess the next question for us is, do we contact the rail lines again in terms of what we would have to do to open up that as paid parking, and do we get back into negotiations with them in terms of that whole space? Because if so, that's gonna take some money, some time, some cost. We'd probably have to fence it in, I think is what we talked, it was part of our discussion with the rail line when they came to meet with council last fall. Not this past fall, but the fall before. We talked about fencing it in and having a gate. We talked about a variety of things. We talked about getting volunteers to enforce the gate. We talked about pay by phone. We talked about the boom arm. We talked about a variety of things. But are we still looking at trying to get a hold of the rail line and looking at figuring out with them to use that for paid parking. Councilor Jarvis.
I think we should still look at the rail line, but my point that I was gonna make was that I actually do, and I've always liked that idea, but I remember mentioning it before, is the sidewalk is there, and you have hydro poles there. So if you're gonna put in a fenced parking lot, and I like that concept, you've got a little more work than you think you do, because you're gonna have to relocate a sidewalk too. That's the actual path people walk.
No, we're talking about,
No, right here, there's
Yeah,
sidewalk.
Talking the west side, she's
I know,
talking the west
but
side, by the
we-
tracks.
but we own, past the sidewalk, we own the 30 feet past
That's a
the
big
sidewalk.
chunk, I know, that's a big chunk. Figure you're, yeah, your car isn't 30 feet long, Pat.
No, I get that.
That's a big chunk. 30 feet in is big, and it's full length. Like, you could probably get a good chunk of cars in there, 40 or 50 cars.
Okay, so we'll look at that. I mean, that means that the Sharon and the Public Works guys.
That's the
will have
biggest thing,
to-
is sidewalk and poles.
Well, I'm not, they'll look at that and see what's gonna have to happen to get that to be a working parking lot, and they'll come back to us with options. Do we want to contact the rail line and start negotiation again? Councillor Hool?
Yep.
Sure.
Councillor General? Yes. Councillor Kozlowski? Yes. Okay. I really like I really like the idea of that property that's for sale there on the corner of Kernstead by the school. Are people aware of that?
Is it still for sale?
Yeah?
The sign's still there?
No? But it's still on the listings. And I'm wondering if we could get enough parking in there that would cover the debenture that we would need to take out to buy the land. And then we could use the house that's on there for a summer cadet for our RCMP. Get more coverage for policing. Councillor Hool, I'm looking at you because you're the guy who buys and sells land all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's a bad idea. And are we gonna be transporting people from there as
That's
well?
7 acres there. Well, right along the rail line there, you've got
Yeah.
room, we could use, you know, little golf carts or golf kite type carts, right? Get some volunteer organizations, see if they want to run them, make money on the transportation. Get a couple of golf carts maybe looking like trains or something, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think it would be kind of cool. The train is back in Winnipeg Beach,
Yeah.
right? The place in France does that. They transport people, they look, I mean, they're a little bit bigger than golf carts, but it's the same kind of thing. And they've dressed them up and they look like trains and cabooses and that sort of stuff. And nobody's driving cars in that town. They're all, you know, this thing, it just does it's a circular thing every 15 minutes and people get on and get off and
Yeah.
so, you know, looking into the future, we could do something like that. But, you know, would buying that land, I mean, the beach always needs more land, the town always needs more land. Would that make sense? That land is so close to the lagoon, it can't be used for any kind of development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it'd be no problem putting a parking lot there.
What's that?
It would be no problem putting a lot
I mean,
there.
no problem putting a lot there, and you've got an existing house. It could be fixed up for, because we keep asking for summer RCMP coverage, and I say, keep saying we can give you a cadet if you had housing for them.
Yeah.
Now we've got more RCMP coverage in town, right in town,
Yeah.
40 hours a week. Do you think it's worth looking into?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Do we have any idea how much he's asking for that property right now?
So
I don't want to,
400,000.
I don't want to talk about any kind of negotiations public. That would be more of an in-camera discussion. What does our CAO think of that?
Um, the CAO would need to look into that.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, I think that, you know, it's looking at, again, as with anything, if if the purchase price is beyond what we have in reserves, and we do have to borrow, there is a process involved which does include a public hearing. And so I think moving along, when we want to look into it, what I would need some specifics of exactly what am I looking into, and maybe that should be an in-camera
Conversation.
discussion at a future meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this isn't something that I've researched or anything, that's just sort of the top of my head, I
Yeah.
keep thinking about it, right?
I can say that I have had discussions with the Historical Society, and their walking tour that they're moving forward on very rapidly is also looking at becoming, as they progress, into a driving tour as well. The Historical Society has very informally thought of some possible solutions, and one of them being is the info center that is at the Caboose location, of modifying that structure by removing one of the walls and putting a door in there, which would that make a bit of a hutch piece. So if there was paid parking in that area or anything along, they would more than really be looking at that. They've discussed about formalizing and getting Green Team students going forward, and looking at having town ambassadors, which discuss, you know, places to go. I mean, the walking tour is amazing with all the locations and everything, and providing some education. And that may be another avenue or opportunity to work with another organization from an educational piece that identifies the 2-hour parking spaces on that map. And they did discuss, you know, grand plans like moving forward. And so I think that when we look at longer term planning and looking at that, you definitely have a shuttle. There are rules and regulations with the shuttle. There could possibly be grants involved if you're looking at electric vehicles, looking at some of the government initiatives. There's a lot of moving parts with a project like that, so I think that council would need to have that in-camera discussion and look at what that looks like, and what costs associated with that, and what the potential revenue we would need to recover in order to meet the debenture payment. Or is there fundraising in it? Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts on that. Okay. But is council directing the CAO with that initiative? Is what are you asking of me?
Why don't we put it on the agenda, not for Wednesday, but 2 weeks from now, for an in-camera discussion? Does that make sense?
Okay. Is there another parking meeting required, like there were at the time of implementing the special meetings? June 25th was also slated as a special meeting to discuss parking.
I don't think that's going to be necessary. It's going to take some time to put this together.
Okay, so then to cancel.
And do we need a resolution? I'll just let you finish doing what you're doing. Sharon, do we need a resolution stating that we've decided to go forward with the ticketed tow paid parking, and we've asked the CAO to start preliminary work on bylaw
So at this point, the resolution based on the conversation is, be it hereby resolved that council direct the CAO to, 1, prepare a draft parking bylaw to address emergency infractions, accessibility spaces, and 2-hour parking downtown. Contact Lakeline Rail to discuss paid parking on leased property, and cancel the special meeting of council June 25th, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Is there any other direction?
Can I ask a question? And
Sure.
I don't know if this needs to be part of the resolution. The in-camera discussion for the next, not this council meeting, but the following, on the property, would it be possible for the CAO to get us the details on the property itself that is for sale, cost, size of the lot, information on the dwelling that's on there for that meeting?
Okay. To obtain details on the parcel
Thank you.
and identify future
Great. One of the councillors is asking for a 5-minute break, so let's take a 5-minute break and come back at 10 to 3.
recess at 2:40.
Recess at 2:40. You're interested in something?
Sure.
For sure.
Just like to introduce myself.
Hi.
You're 50-year residents of this town.
Wonderful. I'm so glad.
I just want to introduce ourselves. I'm Carrie, and this is my husband Gary. We're 50-year residents of this town, so just wanted to say
Oh, hi,
hi.
nice to meet you.
Sort of get more involved in what's going on.
Great, great. And so where are you located? Oh, on Park. Okay, so Park is having parking issues, I think, with the boats. Is that, I think I've got a few complaints in there?
You know what? This is a resort town,
Yeah.
and what I'm really frustrated is seeing people complain about resort towns. Seriously, I love my town,
Yeah.
and to hear people complain about a boat trailer is just too much.
Sharon, cameras are still running and audio is on?
Oh, sorry, okay. Let's step outside. We're taking a 5-minute break. I don't know how to pause it, sorry.
So personally, no, I do not have an issue.
Oh.
This is a resort town, and
audio. And there we go. So you're saying that we're back on?
So I'll read the resolution, council, and if there's anything I've missed or I need to add, let me know. Be it hereby resolved that council direct the CAO to, 1, prepare a draft parking bylaw to address emergency infractions, accessibility spaces, and 2-hour downtown parking. 2, contact Lakeline Rail to discuss paid parking on leased property. 3, cancel the special meeting of council June 25th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And 4, obtain details on the parcel of land identified for future development.
Does number 1 need to be saying, investigate the ticket and tow and enforcement?
I can put that in.
If you could, please.
Parking and ticket and tow enforcement.
And you didn't want to, we don't need to put the details in, any 9 to 5?
No,
2:50,
no, not in the
No?
resolution.
Okay.
It's, because it's a draft, right? It's just gonna be
Okay.
draft for discussion.
Okay,
Was there anything else?
No.
so do I need a mover? Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Jarvis,
Yep.
seconder, Councillor Gendron. All in favor? Carried.
Be it hereby resolved, the special meeting of council held June 11th, 2024 be adjourned at 2:50 p.m.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Kozlowski. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Cool. All in favor? Carried. And that, folks, is a wrap.
Just a question for clarification, we're all planning 2 hours, 2 full hours for this meeting?
Yep.
Thank you.
We're still on camera.
Yeah.